reform, win the election. Farage is now Prime Minister. He gives you the Home Office. You're now the Minister for the Home Office. Policing comes under your remit. How would you fix the police in the UK? I want to jump into policing because I've spent 20 years working with the police, based in police stations. I was never a police officer. I worked for the council, but I was based in police stations, training police, designing projects for the police. And in a couple of minutes, tell me your career in the police.
So I joined the police in I joined the Special Constabulary in 1991 for a couple of years, and then I joined the regular police in 1994. I was based in Bristol, in one of the toughest police stations called Broadbury Road, over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of crimes a year. I was based there for 4 or 5 years, and then I managed to get out by going to a specialist department on the firearms department on traffic, road policing unit, they call it now. But and from there, I was there for about a year, and then I was fortunate enough to get promoted. I passed the exams. You do a written exam, and then you do sort of stations, sort of scenario exam, and I passed. And then I got promoted as a sergeant back to Bristol, and I stayed in Bristol for a while, and then I went back to traffic for a while as a sergeant. And then, unfortunately, my mum died, and I had a career break for a few years. And then when I went back on to, I ended up going to Bridgewater. Then I went to Chard as what they call a neighbourhood policing sergeant. And then I managed to get on the tactical crime unit, which is like a real spearheaded, proactive unit. You basically turn up and you get told what jobs you're going to do anywhere in the force area. It was a very good unit, actually. And then I ended up, for a stint before I had a shoulder operation, I was the assistant chief constable staff officer, which was really, really interesting. You see in the strategic side of policing, I was going to London, I was going to Scotland, MI5 and such like, and foreign affairs. Yeah, so I had a rather mixed career. So really enjoyed it, if I was honest, really enjoyed it. But policing's definitely changed.
Oh, absolutely. So let me give you this scenario. So at the next general election, you stand for MP, you become an MP, reform, win the election. Farage is now Prime Minister. He gives you the Home Office. You're now the Minister for the Home Office. Policing comes under your remit. How would you fix the police in the UK? Because I spent all my life as pro-police. Like I say, years based in police stations, fully supported the police. Last year, I started a fundraiser for officers injured in the line of duty. But now, as we stand now, I actually call myself someone who's anti-police, because I don't think the police are on our side anymore now. They're a political arm of the establishment, and I refer them now as basically the Gestapo, the Cheka, the Stasi. That's how I feel about the British police. I never used to be like this.
No, I can tell. Right, so there's fundamentally things that need to change. There's this recruitment drive that is just recruiting academics with university degrees. That's not a way to be a police officer. I'm not an academic, by far from being an academic, but I still consider myself to be a good police officer. You don't become a firearms officer if you can't make decisions, split-second decisions. My character, my personality, everything was tested during that course. So, you have to have a certain aptitude for being on the street and tackling people and dealing with people in a civil manner, but be able to deal with the highest earners that you meet to the lowest earners that you meet across the board. And I think being an academic coming out of some of the younger, not all of them, by the way, I don't want to stereotype them, but it appears from what I've been told. The thing is, Nick, with me, every time I see a police officer and I get the opportunity, say it's at Costa or they're picking up, I'll stand and talk to them and go, "Hi guys, I used to be a police officer. How you going?" Because I was on the police crime panel, I wanted to know what their interpretation of what's going on with recruitment, because recruitment is the problem. I think recruitment and training. The recruitment is based on academics. Years ago, if you were a really good rugby player and you were quite a big chap and you had a bit about you, or you're an ex-serviceman and you had a bit about you, they wanted you to be a police officer. Now what's happening is that because of what you've just explained, the political side of it, the the woke type setup, the DEI type setup, which is going on. I think that the police service is watered down. And actually, somebody asked me the other day this question: what's the difference between now and then? The difference between then, when I was doing it, and especially in the 90s and 2000s, every single police officer on my team, 99% of them, were proactive, get in there, get it sorted, get the job done, lock up, chase, and actively arrest people. That is what we wanted to do, without a shadow of a doubt. What it seems like now is there's this swing towards more of a social worker type approach, which, as you can see from what's happening with PC Castle and the fallout from that, is that actually now senior management are actually witnessing in real time how people are now viewing police officers like PC Castle jumping on this chap, pinning him to the floor. It wouldn't be my way of dealing with it verbally, because I old school, I probably wouldn't use foul language, but just because back then I used to arrest people that were like that. So, but I don't fall out with what he did. Absolutely not. There's no split second chance when somebody might have a knife or somebody's going to do what he did. He got in there, sorted the problem out, pinned him to the ground. Yes, he called him a few things. Yes, he pointed at him, but it's quite right that the discipline panel did not have any problems with the arrest, did not have any problems with the force used. There was no complaint made. There was no injuries, but to sack him because of courtesy to a guy that's, a young lad, 15 years old, and bearing in mind, Nick, as well, 15, these 14, 15-year-old lads are stabbing each other in London every day of the week. These 14, 15-year-old lads are murdering people in London. So there's no, oh, well, he's only 15. Well, no. He's 15 and he's big enough to go around threatening people and carry a knife. He needs to be dealt with. And I think, going back to your point about what to change, I would seriously look at the reason why there's not a lot of retention at the moment. One of the things on the police crime panel that I was told last year is that there's I don't want to state a percentage, because I probably won't be quite right, but there is a significant percentage of new recruits that are dropping out within the 2 years of probation. Now, back in my day, nobody dropped out. That job was a vocation They really wanted to do it. They wanted to get stuck in, and it doesn't seem like that anymore. And I think that we need to understand. It's very difficult to explain, but people need to have an element of fear. And when you say that, some people go, oh, hang on a minute. What do you mean? But what I mean by that is people, and the judiciary as well, the sentencing, there needs to be an element of fear. If you do a crime and you get caught, you think, oh, my goodness, I'm going to get put away, or I'm going to get this sentence. That's an element of fear. That's an element of preventative.
It's a deterrent.
A deterrent, exactly that. But younger lads, and I said this on X the other day about these face coverings, there seems to be this culture where young lads can go around, wear face coverings, intimidate and bully and play up wherever they want, because they know there's cameras, they've got these face coverings on. And that's another reason that Lawn Castle, PC Castle, took this lad had a face covering. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I think recruitment-wise, senior management have lost touch to frontline policing is the answer. And my last point is that people are getting through. I mean, people listening to this are going to say, what are you on about? This is a fact. There are people that join the police service that cannot pass the conflict management part of the training. So I used to be a tactical defense instructor within the police. I taught new recruits how to use the cuffs, how to use the baton, how to do wrist locks and such like. And we used to call it red man training. So you used to get dressed up in a red padded suit, and there would be scenarios played out, and then the new recruits would have to deal with the scenario and strike and stuff. People are failing that, Nick, but getting put through to go and work on the streets. How on earth, if you talk about safety, a lot of what's going on in the country at the moment with immigration, illegal immigration in particular, with policing, is safety based. We want British people to be safe. and police officers need to be able to act and be, proactive and forceful at times, like PC Castle was, without fear of being sacked. So this man, whether they agreed with the language he used or not, the job that he did wasn't in question. But, this courtesy thing, you're dealing with somebody that had a knife, you're dealing with somebody that's assaulted someone. What do you want? Like I said, it's this social worker. Hi, can I help? Oh, excuse me, can you just stop a minute? Can I just talk to you? This guy could have pulled a knife, he could have run off. He just got in there and dealt with it. And I don't fall out with that one bit. And I think I feel I sound like I'm being a bit passionate about it, because I am. I think it's a real it's an erosion of what the police service should be. And do you know what, Nick? One other thing before I stop going on is, I'm well aware, before the Police and Criminal Evidence Act came in 1984, that prior to that, in the 70s and 80s, there were police officers, we've got to admit it, that were overzealous, heavy-handed, and quite rightly, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act put a lot of that to bed, and we move forward with the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And people that don't know what that is, it's basically the way that police officers have to conduct themselves, from arresting people to detaining people to searching people and so on, and a lot more to it. And the police service then became more professionalized, more accountable. But what's happened now is that fear that, when you were a kid, you get a whack around the head and stuff like they used to, the bobbers come in. Even I remember that. It's gone too far the other way. Instead of becoming centralized, it's gone too far the other way, and you can see it with policing. And now, because of social media and because of these phones with cameras and that and videos, everybody's seeing it. And what I'm really pleased to see is the amount of support that people have given PC Castle, even though he was quite heavy. Like I said, I don't think he was heavy-handed, but people will perceive that he was heavy-handed in the context of the short. I don't know if you know this, but the Dorset Police released a very short clip. So the very short clip was a little bit like the Manchester airport scenario, where the police officer kicked that chap. They only showed the little bit that was a bit incriminating. They didn't show the whole story. And PC Castle's quite rightly come out and explained what the whole incident was. There was a group of them. They were all masked up. There was, there's a lot of context that's been missed out. And luckily, I'm a friend of PC Castle from Bournemouth. I've known him for years, and I'm quite privy to exactly what went on. And I've had a lot of conversations with him over the last few days via Facebook text messaging. So, I think there needs to be big changes, but it's going to be a hell of a responsibility for somebody to start pushing against the narrative and pushing against senior management, because unfortunately, without sounding rude, when you look at some of the senior management, you can see that these people are not what you would not be able to operate on frontline policing. Very good strategically and probably very academic, but would you want to see them on a Friday, Saturday night fighting outside a pub with a load of football hooligans? No, you probably wouldn't.
Middle managers.
Yeah.
The middle managers who a middle manager doesn't have to understand what people below them actually do day to day, because they're looking at strategy, they're looking at budgets, looking at other things. And that's what we have in the police now. It's being run by middle managers. And the NHS has shown us, if you allow a service to be run by middle managers, it slowly collapses over time. And it's happening to the police. The police have always been hated by criminals. But this last...
But they used to, the police, you say that, but the criminals used to have a bit of respect for the police. Back in the day when I was policing in the 90s, if you caught someone red-handed, it was like, fair cop, mate. And they just want to fight. They just want to fight with the police now, don't they? The Antifa lot,
But that's because there's no deterrence. 20 years ago, you fight with a police officer, you're going to get charged with assaulting a police officer. That'll get you more time than the crime you're actually committing. Now, you might as well punch a police officer, because we see weekly in the newspapers, nothing happens. You can punch police officers in the face. We had an immigrant punch 2 female police officers in the face. Didn't even spend a day in jail.
No. Yeah. I think he got community service, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely crazy. But
they've changed that. They've changed the. There's legislation now, isn't there? It's assault of emergency worker that they use within the courts. So
we didn't need that new law. We already had laws for all that. What governments do, as you know, is we have a problem, we can't fix it, pass a law, it looks like we're doing something about it. We've got enough laws in this country to deal with every problem we've ever had, but we don't enforce them. So what's the point of having new laws? Stuart, thank you for coming along today.
Oh, no, it's great, Nick.
And I've got my fingers crossed that that scenario I just painted comes to be. You stand as an MP, reform, win the general election, you become the foreign secretary, and you get an opportunity to fix the police.
Home secretary, not foreign. I'm not very good on my languages.